About a year and a half ago, I created a video on Bitcoin lottery miners. In that episode, I dismissed lottery miners as pointless, and I said that lotteries were essentially attacks on stupidity. Well, guess what? That episode turned out to be my single best performing video on this channel ever. And that's very unfortunate for me because I was wrong. So wrong that I felt compelled to do this follow-up a year and a half later. So let's go over what I've learned since then. I'll also cover some very interesting facts and numbers, like what are your chances of actually successfully mining a Bitcoin block, and why you should run a solo miner as well. All right, let's get it. So I first learned about solo mining from the OMB Content Bounty Program. Ordinal Maxi Biz, OMB, is an ordinal cult. And we do various things like help spread the word of Bitcoin and try to educate people about Bitcoin and also help decentralize Bitcoin. Basically, a mission bigger than just collecting like my PFP. That's how I found out about solo mining. ZK Shark, the leader of OMB, he basically put out a bounty for people who would produce content on solo mining. So that's what that was. That was my awful video. One of my worst videos. You watch it, I tried to watch it, and the quality was so awful that I couldn't watch it. That's how bad it was. Anyway, after that episode was published, just a few days later, ZK decided, you know what, I'm going to publish my own take. And he wrote one of the best essays I've read on solo mining. That was unfortunate. ZK's timing couldn't have been worse for me. Because with that one article, I realized that I had been way off and that I had missed the mark. One issue in particular stood out, and that's that Bitcoin has a centralization problem. See, Bitcoin's security is derived from its decentralized nature. We can think of it like Bitcoin having many heads. You can think of it like a hydra, and it's got thousands of these heads, tens of thousands of them. You cut one off, and it doesn't die because identical information is preserved in each of these heads. And every time the chain updates with a new block, it's updated in every head. So where does the centralization problem come in? Over the years, these massive industrial facilities have been incentivizing miners to join their mining pools. And we're not talking an insignificant amount here. Today, just two of the largest mining pools account for roughly half of all of Bitcoin's hash power. That should bother you because these facilities could be shut down by government order, or they could shut down voluntarily during periods of electricity price surges. So that's where solo mining comes in. We can think of ASIC miners like this, you know, the big miners that we're all familiar with. They're incredibly loud, like airplane hangars. They get ridiculously hot. So you've got to figure out ways to keep them cool all year round. They're power hungry, so your electricity bill is going to be through the roof. Now let's compare that to a solo miner. A solo miner can sound a bit noisy, but it's nothing close to an ASIC miner. And the best part is you can tinker with it and you can modify your gear. For instance, if you have a miner like this one, you can replace the fan and the heatsink and apply some better thermal paste like the Arctic MX4, and your rig will be running smoothly and quietly in no time. A solo miner also doesn't run that hot. Of course, it helps if you live in a cool climate. I'm based in Thailand, so I have to keep an extra fan running in my room at all times, just for the miners. Because when they run cool, they run more smoothly. You also increase their lifetime. Lastly, solo miners barely make a dent in your electricity bill. For instance, the Gamma 601s, they cost roughly $2 per month to keep running 24/7. That's equivalent to a cup of coffee or keeping the light bulb on for 24 hours a day for a month straight. Now let's talk about the odds. The good stuff. A BitX Gamma 601 runs up to 1.2 terahash per second. This means that your chances of mining a Bitcoin block are roughly 1 in 538,900,000. A new block on Bitcoin is mined roughly once every 10 minutes. So that works out to about 1 in 3.74 million chance per day, based on current network difficulty. So for context, the odds of winning the Powerball jackpot are about 1 in 292 million. For the Mega Millions, your odds sit at around 1 in 302 million. So here's the key difference. unlike the Powerball, which draws 3 times a week, and the Mega Millions, which draws twice a week, Bitcoin draws every 10 minutes nonstop, 24 hours a day, every day. So your BitAxe is effectively running a lottery ticket every 10 minutes. A Powerball or Mega Millions ticket, the cost is $2 a ticket each. So $2 per attempt. A BitAxe Gamma costs roughly $2 to run per month. Of course, it's unlikely that you'll ever mine a block. The odds are stacked against you. But unlike a lottery ticket, a BitAxe isn't a gamble. You buy a lottery ticket, a huge chunk of that is going to the state, so you're empowering the state. Guess what? With a BitAxe, whether you win a block or not, you are contributing directly to Bitcoin's decentralization. You're contributing real hash power to the network, and you're strengthening its security. In other words, even when you lose, you're helping Bitcoin. And if you want better odds, here's another option. You can point your hash rate to the solo mining pools. You got Solo CK Pool, which is a popular one, and you've also got Parasite Pool run by ZK Shark. I can go more in depth about the differences between these two pools, but essentially the Solo CK mining pool has been around for a while. They're both dedicated solo mining pools, except with the Solo CK Pool, you win the entire prize for yourself and you pay 1% in fees. Whereas with Parasite Pool, everyone in the pool draws their hash power, and when one person wins, they get 1 BTC, and the rest of the winnings are distributed based on how much hash power each person's contributed. So if you contribute a lot of hash power to Parasite Pool and then someone wins, you stand a chance to win quite a bit of Bitcoin. So Parasite Pool, no one's won just yet, but it is growing. A lot of people are pointing their hash power to the pool, and eventually when it wins, it's going to get a lot of attention and set a new standard for what it's doing. One other thing I love is that unlike other mining pools, even CK Pool charges 1% of the winnings, whereas Parasite Pool actually doesn't charge anything. There are no fees. There's a minimum payout threshold, which is common throughout all mining pools, but the payout minimum for Parasite Pool is 20 sats, which is nothing. This means that even if you win a small amount of BTC, you can cash out, no problem. All you need is to get an Xverse wallet set up, the best Bitcoin wallet. You just share it with the pool. Before we close, let me mention one last thing. Solo miners do win blocks. There were many solo miners that won blocks, and it's happening with increasing frequency. As more people spin up these solo miners and keep them running 24/7, more of these miners are winning and solving blocks. But regardless of whether you ever end up mining a block, remember that you're making sure mining doesn't collapse into a handful of industrial players, the 5 largest of whom currently account for roughly 80% of Bitcoin's hash power. And after digging into this issue, it didn't feel right just sitting in the sidelines and nodding along while the centralization was happening in front of our very eyes. I wanted to contribute in a way that I actually thought was meaningful as well. I started running my own solo miners and helping friends set theirs up. Then I realized that most people don't even know where to start. That's why I started a solo miner, as a way to make it easier for regular folks to run small miners at home and contribute hash power back to the network. Buying Bitcoin is still the simplest way you can participate. And if you want to do that, that's fantastic. Everyone should own at least a little bit of Bitcoin. But if you want to do a little more, if you want to do something that's a bit more hands-on, something that actively strengthens the network, then running a solo miner at home is one way to do that. So if you're interested in picking up a solo miner, check out solominer.xyz or head on over to Twitter. The Twitter handle is @SoloMinerXYZ. And feel free to send me a DM. My DMs are always open to you guys. All right. I do hope you learned something valuable today. I hope that was a fun episode for you. As always, I'm your host, Valeri Yoshi, and I'll catch you in the next one. You've been watching DGen Reports. Ciao.